Shana Tova. I'd like a show of hands, please. Raise your hands if you like or liked group projects. School, work, otherwise. That's a brave few of you. Raise your hand if you did not like group projects in school, otherwise. Okay. Good to know, good to know. Well, love them or hate them, welcome to Judaism, the world's longest running group project, grade still pending. The project really started when God asked us to build a holy space to anchor our community as we walked through the desert. God and Moses outlined a list of the needed building materials. And we can imagine people going through their things, some choosing to bring gold, others dyed wool or wood or dolphin skins, or artisans who chose to give of their skill and their labor. And as the structure took shape and reached final form, a Jew who brought gold could look to golden utensils and see their contribution. A Jew who brought dyed wool could look at multicolored wall panels and see theirs, and so on and so forth. With pride in their hearts over what each one gave, we could look to the final product, God dwelling inside that sanctuary, and every Jew could feel a stake in the group project, knowing that the holiness of the sanctuary came not just from God, but from themselves personally. Now, I love this group project model of holiness, but there is danger. You see, if I bring gems to the sanctuary, I'm likely to focus on where my gems fit into the wider whole. If I bring oil or spices, I'll be interested in knowing how they're used. In a frame of mind where my gift is the most important to me, I risk thinking that it is the most important in the project. My blind spot is to your gift and how what you brought is just as essential. Your gift is important and vital to the group project of holiness as what I bring. Today, our Jewish community finds itself divided upon lines both real and imagined. We have different camps driven by diversity in political thought, diversity in how we view the actions of the state of Israel, divisions around how we practice Judaism, who comes into our tent, who chooses to remain outside. And within these walls, we differ in how and how much we engage. In short, we live in a Jewish world where we might fall into the trap of our ancestors thinking, my voice is essential to Judaism, while forgetting that yours is too. The diversity of Judaism, the diverse gifts that we bring, has always been our strength. It is the basis upon which we maintain a holy community, but sometimes we forget it. Now, diversity takes many different kinds of forms. Our tradition has always engaged different kinds of Jews. Judaism can look academic and ecstatic. It evolves its own regional traditions while retaining a recognizable core. It's influenced by nations and ideas and philosophies, including those that created Reform Judaism. Now, sometimes our diversity ensures our survival by preserving multiple opinions in tension with one another. Classic example, between insular voices and those who are open to the outside world and willing to assimilate. This is the landscape of the Hanukkah story. Jews assimilating into Greek culture for the opportunities, some taking extreme steps even to erase their identity. But when that Greek king outlawed Jewish practice outright, it was the zealous, insular Maccabees who drove the Greeks out and kept Judaism alive. And yet, just decades later, rabbis would be adopting Greek loanwords for use in our sacred texts. Using ideas borrowed from Greek philosophy, they wanted to show how our ancient Judaism was modern, like Plato and Aristotle. I guess modern to them. This act of assimilation also kept Judaism alive. We feel this tension of values when imagining our responsibility to our neighbors on a spectrum, from universal to particular. If I'm commanded to love my neighbor as myself, when do I expand my circle of concern to read neighbor as every human? And when do I read neighbor as specifically referring to those within the Jewish community? We recall powerful examples of both. A particular definition of Judaism is what bound Jews together when we fought Nazis in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And a universal definition bound Jews to our black neighbors when we extended a hand to the NAACP and helped draft the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act in Reform Jewish offices in Washington, D.C. This diversity is why our libraries and our offices are full of books that preserve the minority opinion alongside the majority. It's why the Talmud exists. Unlike today, dissenting voices don't get canceled, litigated into submission, or taken off the air. Jewish questioning of what is as foundational to our existence as Torah. To be a part of Am Yisrael, the people Israel, is to be one who wrestles and struggles with God, with people, with oneg cookies, and yes, what you hear from the bima. This wrestling and diversity complicates Jewish life, but it is the root of our survival, our holiness, in fact. And over the past many months, this diversity has tested us. We don't know how this period will be remembered. We're deep in the tohu vavohu, the chaos of the moment. We look around at all the tragedies in our own backyards and around the world. We see all these divisions between groups of Jews. We care deeply, yet feel largely unable to make change. We talk past one another, use terms that mean different things to each of us, equate people with their opinions, and erect barrier and judgment. This is most fraught, of course, around Israel, where most will agree that there are terrible things happening, but fewer of us will align perfectly on what's wrong, why, and what to do about it. And in our increasingly online culture, we've been losing the ability to be in conversation with a person right in front of us. So instead, we speak and we listen in sound bites. When we consume media, watch a video, read a statement, we can't respond in conversation really. So we overanalyze a line, a word said or not said, impugn the motivations of the speaker. And in doing so, we make assumptions that only deepen the chasms between us. And why? Because no one is listening to each other. No one seems interested in learning. Easier to cancel them or avoid them, just as one might change the channel or block an account. Easier to make assumptions of your fellow congregants or clergy rather than ask the question in long form. I heard you say this. I'd love to know more. I have questions. I fear that lack of listening and curiosity is deeply harming our community. Internally, that looks like division. Externally, this lack of curiosity might look like politicians using the Jewish community and the current moment for political gain. We clergy receive many emails, take meetings with folks asking us to pick a side, take a stand, validate an opinion. For every person who wants us to use this bima to preach about politics, another person wants us to refrain from those topics altogether. We do our best to listen and take in all that is shared with us and find some balance that allows every person in this room to hear themselves reflected back to them. But I'll admit, it's really hard. So I'll share what's clear among all of it. We all experience the world and its challenges differently. So many people feel unheard, so many people in pain. Some of us feel validated by our friends and family opinions. Others feel isolated. Some of us have a deep network of people to talk to, and others do not. I wish we were better at listening to one another, whether we were going to agree. I wish we could hear an opinion different from our own and not make judgments about their character. Al chet shechatati. I've been guilty of this too. I resolve to do better. When the challenges of the world are both vast and personal, it's natural to dig in and find safety with people who align with us. We want to bolster our side, after all. Bring people into our camp, because if they just saw things our way, they would know we are right. But in doing so, we risk turning ourselves from the holy people who stood at Sinai to the people of Babel, scattered to the winds because we've lost the fundamental ability to communicate. As Israeli author Etgar Keret just wrote, each of us is trapped in our separate feeds, our separate languages, with different facts and different conclusions which grow only more and more solid. When we look into one another's eyes, we see something completely foreign. And at the end of the biblical story, the people abandoned their project to build together. Many stories in the Bible end badly, and ours seem to be headed that way too. So how do we prevent the same ending as Babel? I propose 3 rules of engagement to sustain the holiness of our community. First, we honor that each of our gifts enhance the holiness of the temple. I can appreciate what I bring into this community, and it's just as important to recognize and acknowledge what you bring. We learn that the temple was destroyed because of sinat chinam, baseless hatred, which caused our ancestors to lose sight of their central purpose. And this risk doesn't just apply to the Beit HaMikdash, it applies to any holy space or community, our families, our synagogues, our democracies. There is a reason that a place like Temple Judea has existed for almost 75 years. We created a holy community as a place to anchor our Judaism as we move to the suburbs, to celebrate our lives here, to educate our children here, to mourn our losses here. Through our connections within these walls, we make an impact on the community beyond them. We teach the next generation that we are more than the sum of our holidays, our stories, or our music. You can be proud of the community's gifts without actively participating in it at all. Collectively, we love the spirited voice of our preschoolers, whether or not one of them is part of your family. We're grateful to those who dedicate time and energy to supporting vulnerable populations around LA, even if we're not able to participate ourselves. We appreciate and support the funding of our educators, even if our children left home decades ago. And we read the e-news each week, or at least we hope you do, and wish that you could attend more of the programs and groups, but you're so grateful they exist for those who enjoy them regularly. We inherited Temple Judea from those who came before us, forward-thinking individuals who pooled the gifts that they brought and leaned into the value of creating something beyond their own needs, a place that is about all of us and no one of us at the same time. They and we see the holiness in belonging to an institution that is not just for us, but for generations before and after, for people who see the world through different eyes, for people we may or may not align with, for people of all ages and experiences. This place is for you. It's also for the person sitting next to you, and for the person who isn't here as well. The second rule for sustaining holiness involves deepening relationships. Relationships are key. especially when things are hard, when we disagree, when our gifts seem at odds with each other, when we recognize that the way I think about anything, raising a family, politics, Israel, might not be wholly aligned with yours. The Talmud teaches it is impossible to have authentic relationships without hard conversations. And the opposite applies too. You can't have hard conversations without authentic relationships. When we sit in services together, study or attend programs together, raise our children together, we create a basis for that trust, for that authenticity. Those relationships enable to see someone with whom we disagree not as the enemy, but as someone worthy of learning with and from. We can build those relationships by including a check-in at our programs, whether for kids, teens, adults, whether it's for mahjong or a committee meeting or a serious conversation about the Middle East. We share a little bit before taking a deep breath and jumping into potentially vulnerable content. So even if I didn't know you before we sat down together, I now know that your child started a new school this year and it's going well. Your dog is tearing up the furniture and it's driving you crazy. And only then how do you feel about something happening in Israel. When we start with connection, we remind ourselves we are more than our opinions about any one thing. And our relationships help us work through the challenge, even when they feel fundamental. So when you walk into this holy place, in through the living room, start by assuming that these members of your Judea family are worthy of relationship. Even if for no other reason than y'all opted into Jewish life here. I get it's easy to create silos or groups here, and yes, there are plenty of reasons to find your people and stick with them. But we come into Jewish places to feel comfort and discomfort. Comfort as a shelter from the outside world, and discomfort by doing something iconoclastic, being in community with people who are different from us. And this brings us to our third rule of holiness. It largely combines the first two. Act from the belief that every person here has something to teach and something to learn. The sages taught that the wise person is able to learn from everyone. Not because everyone is correct on an issue, but because everyone has something to teach us. This could be simple. When we see the older generation of mahjong veterans teaching legions of ECC and religious school parents how to play, we hear what's meaningful to different generations and each learns from the other. When we empower each B'nai Mitzvah student to know that their voice matters and we welcome their wisdom and their challenges from this very bima. Their voice is the Torah teaching for the week because we all have much to learn. When we're sharing our gifts with each other, it's much easier to engage as a learner with curiosity. But when we find disagreement on issues, when we feel so strongly, it's harder to engage that curiosity, to separate a person from their opinions, to not get upset when someone holds an opinion we find frustrating or factually inaccurate. What muddies the water further is when we try to have hard conversations, sometimes we realize that you and I are consulting news sources or internet algorithms reporting dramatically different information and perspectives. This kind of fractured world is one that we can only heal by hearing deeply, listening with intention, by learning the other person's motivations, assumptions, deeply held values. We want to understand their heart, not change who they are. Honoring each other's gifts beyond our own, focusing on building authentic relationships here in this community, exhibiting the wisdom to be open to what others have to teach. Separately and together, not easy to live out. It's aspirational, it's messy. But these are the ways we choose into holiness. We create holy space not because God has preordained it's holy. We choose holiness through our actions and through our hearts to create a sanctuary, and only then does God dwell among us. God affirms our holiness when we have hearts big enough to hold concern for ourselves and for another. Our hearts are big enough to disagree with our neighbor, our child, or parent while continuing to hold them close. Our hearts are big enough to be proud of the diversity of this community and how we like to engage in Jewish life. Our hearts are big enough to break, and they are also big enough to love. Big enough to seek comfort from others and give them comfort too. And through it all, our hearts are big enough to choose holiness in this moment, in this place, in this world. And so my prayer for this great communal group project of 5786, I pray that we give our gifts fully. We appreciate others in their gifts and be appreciated in kind. Speak imperfectly and hold each other with compassion and truth. Resist certainty, but be certain in knowing that we all have much to learn from one another. Choose to live in tension when you find it. Resist the urge to walk away. Know each other. Show up for each other. God affirms our holiness when we have hearts big enough to hold concern for ourselves and for one another. Let us choose holiness this year. Shana Tova.